Hello, everybody. I just wanted to continue my thoughts on Anne Heche. And again, I ask for your indulgence because I'm mostly spitballing here. I don't have an organized presentation that I'm making. Not that I ever really do on this channel. But in this case in particular, there's just a bunch of stuff that seems like it's important stuff to get out there. And maybe it's significant, and maybe it isn't. But anything that seems like it's possibly significant is worth talking about with respect to this. What I still take to be a very strange, mysterious death that took place a few days ago in a Los Angeles suburb. So last time I spent most of my time talking about the incident itself, the way in which the body was taken out under some kind of scrim or something. I thought initially that it was a body bag, but then somebody said later in the comments, and it made sense to me, that no, it's not a body bag. It's something that they just put over her body for some reason. But, without repeating myself, why do that? Why was there not oxygen administered immediately at the scene? Why were they not giving her oxygen en route to the vehicle, to the ambulance? And most strikingly, why, when she leapt up out of the scrim that they had on her and threw it off and basically sat up, why did they not stop? Why did the 4 firemen who were pushing her just keep pushing her into the waiting ambulance? Why didn't they stop? Why didn't they hesitate? Why didn't they say, "Oh, she's alive. Oh, she's awake. Ma'am, are you okay? Can you hear me?" Or something. I don't know, something along those lines. They just didn't hesitate at all. It was like it didn't even happen to them. It was as though they didn't even see her suddenly. The striking sight of her rising, the top part of her body rising up and getting out, and wanting to get off, seemingly wanting to get away from the ambulance. And then I also talked about how there was a strange set of circumstances whereby when she was initially brought to the hospital, they said she was in stable condition and on the road to recovery, which would make sense if she woke up. If what we saw was her becoming conscious, then it would make sense that she would be stable. But why would it suddenly get downgraded severely, like downgraded to comatose and brain dead? How did that happen? Maybe it just happened by chance. Maybe the all the drugs she had in her system caught up with her. Maybe the smoke or the smoke inhalation got to her belatedly. I don't know. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's not what you would typically find. I say that as one who is a medical novice, but who has common sense. So these observations are not just to be dismissed out of bounds, or out of. They're not just to be waved away. These kinds of objections that I or anyone else has, or not objections, just questions questions. Um, so, what I want to talk a little bit more about now is some things that we know about Anne Heche's life. Um, and again, I'm just going to kind of be a little scattershot here. What I just showed you was the cover to her book. Let me show it again. Let me show it again just to put it fresh in your minds again. So the one eye thing she does there, those who have been around the block or two of alternative explanations beyond the mainstream know that one eye thing, that posing with one eye, is something we see a lot, and that it would seem to be significant, that it seems to indicate some kind of connection or some kind of connectedness to some powerful force, powerful entity, powerful group, sometimes called the Illuminati, although I'm not married to terms. I don't know whether they go by any name in particular. But let's just talk a little bit about some things that happened in Anne Heche's life. I've talked before about most recently I talked about Ezra Miller, and I said, I really think this guy. I get the feeling this guy is messed up because he's been in Hollywood since he's been a child, and was probably abused, and he's acting like it. Somebody who's been abused. He's acting out. It has an effect on a person's psyche, and people who have been abused, that their lives go in all kinds of different directions. Not all the time. Not all the time. Sometimes, you can find a way to deal with it and to find your way back to a sense of sanity again. But the trauma is so deep, and it is so difficult to transcend, that it just, especially when it happens to you at a vulnerable age, it just absolutely knocks you for a loop, and you're just you carry it with you often for the rest of your days. Unfortunately, it's a sad thing, but it's true. And Anne Heche is someone who was molested when she was a child. She grew up in a very chaotic family situation. She, from what I understand, I haven't read her autobiography, but from what I have gathered, she had a family that was barely together, and her father was someone who slept around and slept with men as well as with women, and was one of the first men in America to die of AIDS. But before he died, he molested her. And so, that's a lot to deal with. And then finding out that that's your father who's been molesting you, was HIV positive, and at the time, both she and her mother didn't know if they were going to contract the disease. They didn't, apparently. But her brother committed suicide. all kinds of things. Uh, there was all kinds of chaos in her young life, and then she was set on a path. What I gather is that she got into showbiz at a fairly young age, and that set her on a certain path. Um, and if I were one to connect the dots, I would wonder if this was a case of somebody out there seeing, ooh, this one's, we've got a vulnerable, malleable young one out here, someone that we can take and mold and sculpt into what we want her to be, and someone we can also, you know, do with as we will, do with as we wish. Um, she was in some school plays, and then she got noticed, and then she wound up pretty quickly on a pretty fast track. I believe wound up on Broadway, and then made the move to Hollywood. So, what else can be said about her that I think is interesting, significant? Well, um, she got out in Hollywood. She you know eventually got cast in some big time movies. Uh, I think the first major role that she had was, as I said, opposite Johnny Depp in a movie called Donnie Brasco. I think that came out in '96 or '97, sometime around then. And then Wag the Dog uh, after that, which I've discussed here. And interestingly, that's a movie. We talk about a meta commentary. That's a movie about uh, the industry, the entertainment industry, uh, uh, pulling the wool over the eyes of the public by orchestrating uh, various phony crises. Uh, it's definitely worth seeing. Very very interesting movie. But she was in that movie, and she got to star with heavyweights: Dustin Hoffman, Robert De Niro. She was playing with the big boys at this point. So she met Ellen DeGeneres and had a relationship with her for 3 years, I believe, from '97 to 2000. I don't know who broke the relationship off, but I do know that Ellen was the only woman that we know of that she was ever with, other than Ellen DeGeneres. Every other boyfriend or husband that she had over the course of her life was a man. I find that interesting. Um, and there's lots of things one can speculate about that. I guess that my suspicion is when you obtain a certain kind of power and clout, you get this allure, and that allure is particularly irresistible to to women generally, but to vulnerable women especially. Now, this mostly applies to men, powerful men. Powerful men have this aura about them, that draws women to them like moths to a flame. But I think there can be cases where it happens with women as well, and it seems that Ellen DeGeneres might be one such case. I'm not necessarily saying there is anything untoward in her in their what do you want to call it, courtship or whatever. Uh, but just to say that, especially with the things we've known about Ellen that have come out about her over the last few years, the things that the way that we found out that she treats people, the way that her arrogance, her aloofness, her what's been called just meanness, bitchiness, uh, cruelty, uh, which never particularly surprised me because I never really got warm vibes from Ellen. I just never did. But um, that made me uh, consider the possibility that here you have in Anne Heche this generally rather vulnerable person, even though she was older. She was like in her late 20s, so she was an adult by this time. She could make her own decisions, um, but still somebody whose past is marred by this great degree, enormous amount of trauma. Um, you know, it makes me think of you know sticking with the LGBT crowd. It makes me think of someone like Harvey Milk. What people don't know about Harvey Milk generally, because you're not supposed to say it, because we're supposed to just see him as a brave pioneer for gay rights or whatever. But Harvey Milk was a predator. Harvey Milk uh, took in a 15-year-old runaway. Um, took him in, to under the guise of compassion, and then uh, sexually exploited him, sexually abused him. Um, Now, this is not this would not be on the same level as that because we're not talking about a teenage runaway in the case of Anne Heche, but still, it brings it to mind just as something to as a comparable situation. Um, so after she broke up with Ellen, and I don't know who did the breaking off. I don't know if she broke it off with Ellen or if Ellen broke it off with her, but she was very distraught afterwards. And as I said last time, she had this weird breakdown where she talked about this very frankly on television to Barbara Walters, saying that she had met aliens and believed herself to be an alien and thought her name was Celestia, and she demonstrated this alien language. She spoke this alien language that she just made up, or to her, she didn't make it up. To her, it was a language that she learned, um, and she demonstrated it. And I've been trying to find a video of her demonstrating this language, speaking this alien language to Barbara Walters. It was one of the bizarrest things I've seen on television, and that's saying something. Um, so that makes one think of uh, MK Ultra programming breakdown. Someone who's been conditioned to break down, to self destruct. Or it could have just been something that happened naturalistically because of her own trauma. But again, this is Hollywood, and there's lots of filthy, disgusting, awful, appalling things that they do to men, women, and children in Hollywood. So uh, nothing would surprise me there. So I'm going to leave this off. I think I'm going to actually make a part 3 because I've got a few more thoughts on this subject. Thanks for watching.